For me?
Trottier, like
Oh, I'm glad
Chevrolet.
I asked. I'm glad I asked. I've been saying it wrong. In my head, I've been saying it wrong. Trottier. Okay. Ian Trottier, author of the book High Stakes Treason. In five, four, three. Welcome to the big old bad old broadcast, my friend, my fellow Northern Californian who's escaped California and gone to better. You've actually moved to the United States of America. Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you, Charles. Yeah, I found myself in the Northwest, a little further east of the of what is considered Northwest. Most people think Seattle. I'm in the state next to Washington, well, next to Idaho, called Montana. But I'm in Montana by way of Florida, not California. So I went from California to South Carolina to Florida, up to Montana. But it wasn't necessarily the politics, Charles, that brought me to Montana. It was more of the opportunity for there to be less people to concentrate on writing, because I was in Miami Beach and I just felt like I wanted something a little more secluded. But since I've been here, a lot of folks are moving into this area, because, as you say, this is these are kind of the middle class America, which is shrinking rapidly, in my opinion. These are
Not by
these are
accident. California is trying to get rid of everyone in the middle class. We're the ones that start businesses. We're the entrepreneurs. We're the ones that may have started out as ideologues, and we're all about the Democrat Party because it's great for everybody and it's for the working man. And then we learn later that's a load of crap. The last thing we want is more government interference and running our lives and our business. So we turn to the right. California wants us out. I'm quite convinced that's what's going on with fuel, from the fuel prices to everything else. They just want middle class out, and they love that we're moving away and moving out. And you wouldn't think that's counterintuitive. You would think, well, aren't the tax dollars leaving with them? No, they want the haves and the have-nots. They're looking for a New York kind of vibe where Joe Biden literally called California the model for the United States of America, which is scary as hell. Because believe me, this state is a train wreck, and you were smart in getting out. But you've lived in some of the most beautiful places to live in the nation. I love North Carolina. Florida's fantastic. Montana, just beautiful and wonderful. But how old were you when you left Oakland, California?
Well, yeah, I was born in Oakland. I was raised in the East Bay, Charles, and I actually went up to Oregon for college, and then I ended up back down in California, Mountain View. I'm probably one of the first, randomly enough, I'm probably one of the first 2,000 people that ever heard the name Google. As I was working at a Greek restaurant in Palo Alto, outside of it, and Charles Schwab came walking out with maybe five business clad fellows that were talking about a startup, a search engine startup that would rival Yahoo, Ask Jeeves, Netscape. This is probably 2000, 2001. And Google was just a small incubator office right there on Lytton Avenue or something like that in Palo Alto. And then a couple years later, boom, they blew up, and they had a sprawling campus there on Shoreline Amphitheater. But I heard in my ear Charles Schwab talk about investing in this startup called Google, and I thought to myself, what a weird name. I didn't know the definition behind it. But that was from there, and then I lived in San Francisco itself for about 8 years. I lived on Clay and Taylor. Tony
I was
Bennett
up
was
in
on the
Diamond
park bench.
Heights
Man, this is Nob Hill.
on a
This is
park bench. What? I'm sorry. What did you say about a park bench?
Yeah. So I sold my car. Didn't need a car anymore in San Francisco, and I go to literally show the guy and his wife they were going to buy the car, and I show them the car, and then he looks over at the park bench. What's the name of the Harrington? I can't remember the name of the park up there, but it's right by the Big Four restaurant. Clint Eastwood used to eat at that place, and Grace Cathedral, Fairmont Hotel, and he says this guy looks like Tony Bennett. And so I look over and I says, "Oh, it is." And I knew he had been in town because they were doing some white ball or black tie event that night. And so we went up to Tony. He was a really nice fellow. He says, "Yeah, sure." He took a few minutes. He was literally rehearsing his lines that he was going to be singing. Probably I Left My Heart in San Francisco. I mean, what a magical town that was. I loved every moment of my time there. But Gavin Newsom was the mayor at the time, Charles, and old Kamala Harris was the brilliant city attorney at the time, and their politics just drove me nuts. It drove me nuts. It was hard for me to digest the state that produced Ronald Reagan. Of course, he wasn't born and raised there, but the state that produced Ronald Reagan, ties to Richard Nixon, to go so far over to the left. Some of their policies just really got to me. But I also was in a marriage that didn't work out, and so it was an opportune time to go somewhere else. I frankly, born and raised in California, I think it's a great state. I think it's, as you said, it's a total nightmare right now, because the deep state, if you will, the global strings that are pulling so many politics out of
Oh
D.C.
yeah,
They want that a communist state, just like they're
on
changing New
purpose,
York,
not an
and on
accident.
purpose.
They're
Yeah.
concentrating on here because
Mhm.
we are the fifth largest economy in the world, fourth largest according to Governor Hairdo, but he's a liar. And so they want that because as California goes, as we've seen time and time again, so goes the rest of the nation.
Yeah.
Not an
Yeah. And
accident. Biden
unfortunately,
is
yeah,
good.
so I mean, I went from San Francisco to South Carolina. The weather was better. Not a yeah, San Francisco itself is such a beautiful city. The rolling
It
hills, the
was.
food,
Sure
the
was.
history. It's such a gorgeous place. The politics have ruined it. But what I say to a lot of folks that look at California and don't realize what has happened to it. California at its core, and I don't know a whole lot of people that are still there, but California at its core. This guy Bianco, Sheriff Bianco. I was at an event in San Diego a few weeks ago. I've got a guy there in Nevada that really likes my work and invited me to that event. He actually sponsored a trip to D.C. where I was able to approach Senator Ron Johnson, Senator Scott about my material. But I was at an event in San Diego where, and just so your viewers know this history because I think it's important. I approached Bianco with my book and my information. We're talking about corruption at the very heights of the CIA. And he
Yeah.
says, "Oh yeah, your book is sitting on my kitchen counter. I've heard great things about you." And yeah, I mean that's that's just Sheriff Bianco, okay. And in contrast, Hilton is at the same event, and when I approached Hilton, it was John Brennan. Yeah, I used to talk about him all the time on my Fox News show. And I says, well, you probably haven't looked at the information that I have. You and your team should take a look. And he says, oh no, I don't have any time for that. Okay, that's fine. You don't have any time for that. Well, persistent I am. I saw him the next day, and the moment he looked at me, beginning to approach him, he turned the other way. This is not a guy that California should be electing to represent them in any way, in my opinion. He is, of course, he's a British guy. He's foreign born. I think you need, especially if California has any hope, you need, and Bianco's born out of state as well. But you need at least American born people. We can see it in Elon Omar. We can see it in New York with this guy Mandami that was born in Africa. They don't understand what the real true American spirit is. They're here just like in my opinion, Charles, they're here just like every other illegal that rushes over to the border to get in and take advantage of the economy, take advantage of the safety and what they ever can. And I can't blame them for doing that, but they're in contrast with other people that have fought through generations to have a nice lifestyle. And that's even people that have immigrated or moved into the country legally, legitimately, and not illegally. It's a disgrace to the system. People like the Biden policies and that type of thing. They're just destroying the fabric of what makes this country great as a constitutional republic. And my goal here, or my message in this for a moment, is that Californians that will be listening to me, they need to realize that California, and I defend California, right, to a degree. I'm not there fighting for it. I'm fighting for other things nationally and on DC, but California at its core, it's a Bear Revolt state. That's the flag, the Bear Revolt flag. And it's a Lone Star state, which is highly important for people to understand that history because there are 4 Lone Star states. Texas is the one that most people think of, but Arizona, New Mexico, and California are all Lone Star states, which means that when Mexico was falling apart and losing those states under the Polk administration, and those 4 states for about 2 years, is my understanding, became their own republics. And this is why the flag says California Republic, because at its core, it is an independent, self-functioning entity that has fallen, to my research, to the Rothschild empire out of the city of London. And that's the same thing that took control of Mexico. It's really they're fighting a very similar battle economically. If you go back and you look at the Alamo and you look at some of these old battles that have been fought over the past couple centuries, California is right now, unfortunately, because people aren't standing up to that independence that made it a republic, a California republic. They're in jeopardy of completely letting it wash into the sea, so to speak. And it's a shame because it's a beautiful state. So I will fight for that state as best as I possibly can. But I mean, there's just no way I could ever afford to live in that state. There's just simply not. To pay those taxes is asinine. There should be active protests daily with hundreds of thousands of people protesting. California itself should be drilling its own oil. This is asinine to be buying oil out, foreign oil, and importing it to the state of California. This is the wealthiest and richest state in the union, and for people to continue to tolerate this abuse from the politics out of Sacramento is a disgrace to the American spirit. But I'll fight for as much as I possibly can. Right now, my focus is on John Brennan.
Talking to folks in the oil business, and I'm just a good old boy from Bakersfield. Kern County has as much or more oil, according to these oil folks, petroleum people in the business. We have more oil than Saudi Arabia. This next week, Tuesday, this right here, primary elections, my friend, June 2nd, Tuesday. This is our opportunity to actually get some conservatives representing us as all kinds of very important offices are open. Treasurer, Secretary of State, Lieutenant Governor, Attorney General, Michael Gates, by the way, that's my vote. But we don't show up. A third of the state of California claims to be Christian, yet only about 40% of them are even registered to vote. This is insane, Ian. We don't show up. And when it comes to primaries and midterms, and because of our jungle primaries, our elections are won and lost in the primary. It's in the teens. We don't show up to vote. Gun owners don't vote. Hunters don't vote. This is ridiculous. They're not even registered. This is insane. They've rolled right over. And I've been to many different events at the state capitol building in Sacramento, trying to make our voices heard and inviting everybody to come down and join us for this or that or whatever we're talking about, some bill that they're trying to sneak through or push through or force through. It's happening all the time, like the Stop Nick Shirley Act that's going on right
incredible.
now. It is. And we will try and get the word out, and we'll let people know, our own fellow conservatives, our own fellow patriots, they don't show up. They don't show up. It'll be just like 20, 30, 40 people showing up to some big event at the Capitol building. We suck. We suck. It is our fault. I don't blame politicians anymore, Ian. I blame the people who are putting them in those tremendous positions of power. So that is over half of the state population of California are voting these people into office. And then those of us trying to represent the other side, we don't show up to vote. No wonder why we're in the position we're in. I pray that it is different next week on June 2nd. I really pray that we will do the right thing and actually show up this time around for a primary election. We lost Ian. I don't know why. There he is. He comes back. There he is. Hello, buddy. Picking up where we left off, I'm saying I just pray that people get their act together and actually show up for the primary election next week. If you have to vote by mail, you have to vote early. I wish you wouldn't, but if that's how you have to do it, go ahead and do it. Just do it. It came in the mail, for heaven's sake. It's right here. Everybody gets one in the mail. Some of them get 13, 14 in the mail. Just do it, please. Please, this is our opportunity, buddy. We got a great president right now. We got a change in direction. We've had catastrophes and ridiculousness and tyranny and treasonous acts here by our own government, the Democrats. It's a super majority, yet we're allowing it. We're not even getting involved. How do we change that? Those hearts and minds of the people who can actually make a difference, Ian?
Yeah, the my message is based off of why I began doing a podcast in Miami Beach in 2016 when I was led from the Zika virus to a Stanford Hoover Fellow after researching the economic strings to the Zika virus discovered in the Uganda forest or Zika forest in Uganda in Africa. I can get into that another time, but that research led me to a guy named Sutton, Anthony Sutton. That was a Stanford Hoover Fellow in the early 70s, and he left the institute because they were censoring him about the dealings of Prescott Bush funding Nazi Germany during World War II, and that was through Union Bank. Therefore, General Motors planes, the Luftwaffe was flying General Motors plane when they were bombing London, and that was all fueled by Union Bank. That flipped a switch in me, Charles, and I began looking into the economic corruption in D.C. And so I've been speaking out against the Federal Reserve System since the start of my podcast in 2016. And that
Wow,
is
look at you go.
precisely, Charles,
Excellent.
that is precisely, Charles, that is precisely why in 2024, when a former FBI agent that was struggling to get his voice and his research heard, when he presented to my podcast table at a CPAC in Maryland, his research on John Brennan, the former director of the CIA, he asked me, he said, Ian, do you have any idea why John Brennan hates Donald Trump? Now, Biden and Harris were in the White House at that time. He nor I knew if Trump was going to get back into office. We didn't know what that election was going to bring, but he needed help, and because he had followed the money and I had followed the money, that information resonated with me. And for 2 years, I pushed to get a publisher. The publisher is Post Hill Press. That lawyer tried to stop the information. They tried to stop the publication, and Posto Press said, "No, we're going to go through with this." Roger Stone has written a forward. John Kiriakou, former CIA agent, he's written one of the forwards. Brooks Agnew. These are brilliant minds, really smart guys that have all written, contributed to this book. And we got this published in July of last year. Steve Bannon had me on a couple times, but it is driving a wedge in the deep state and John Brennan now. What's interesting, Charles, is I was in D.C. last October and I spent a week and a half. I had a guy help me out, stay at his place. And so I was able to save some costs there. I'm self-financed. But I walked the halls of Congress. I walked the House. I walked the Senate. I passed out 100 copies of this book. A week after I left, Jim Jordan out of Ohio submitted a request to the DOJ that John Brennan be investigated. And he has subpoena came down, multiple subpoenas came down in that South Florida district through perjury charges, alleged perjury charges of him lying to Congress in 2023 in regards to his involvement in the Russian collusion hoax. And that has ties during the Biden administration, FBI raid on Mar-a-Lago. So what I've been pushing lately for Charles is to get Jason Quinones, who's the lead attorney on those subpoenas down in South Florida, to get him involved in looking at the contents of my book, just to give your listeners an understanding of what they're going to find when they purchase High Stakes Treason and read High Stakes Treason or listen to it on audio. It's available on Amazon. They will find that former director of the CIA, the man that Obama put in as director of CIA, an avowed communist and a convert to Wahhabism, which is a very violent sect, radical sect of Islam, not peaceful by any means. This is the man that Obama put in as assistant director. Prior to that position, he withheld vital national intelligence NSA, FBI, which could have, as an example that we list in our book. And again, the crux of this information came from the research of this former FBI agent that couldn't put his name attached. Okay, I mentioned him in the introduction, but he needed help getting the information out, so I offered the material. John Brennan sequestered, meaning hid, vital national security intelligence so that his illegal stock holdings in a company called the Analysis Corporation, a terrorist database tracking of terrorists, those illegally held stocks will increase in value. What we show through SEC filings where he slipped is that John Brennan gained from $50,000 worth of those stocks to just shy of $5 million at the expense of American lives, at the expense of American taxpayers, doing it to embolden and empower himself. And that is the accusation, or excuse me, those are the allegations that HIPAA presents on Mr. John Brennan. So your listeners and viewers may be familiar with his name, possibly through John. Mike Benz is another guy that's spoken about John Brennan. There's a woman named Svetlana Lakova, General Mike Flynn. These are all people that have been outspoken against John Brennan. And the reason they've been speaking about Brennan is likely because he's been involved in the Russian collusion. Tulsi Gabbard revealed the email, and I think you're going to show this on this segment. Tulsi Gabbard revealed the emails they showed John Brennan orchestrated, which Roger Stone mentions in his forward. He orchestrated the Russian collusion hoax with Christopher Steele that produced the Steele dossier. This was done through Cambridge University, that's the United Kingdom, and their surveillance systems. This is a direct sellout of a country. This is why I used the name treason. This guy threw his entire country under the bus so that he could enrich himself financially and try to keep an outsider, political outsider, Donald Trump, out of office in 2016. They smeared him with this Russian collusion hoax, a complete facade, completely fabricated. And for your listeners to research, they can research something called Hamilton 68 dashboard, and that shows a conglomeration of high-tech individuals with links to California that were involved in directly creating Russian disinformation, Russian bots using Twitter and Facebook that showed that Russia was manipulating the system to put Donald Trump in office. It's all fake. It's fraud. Hamilton 68 dashboard, and the person that revealed that and spoke to Congress about it is a guy named Jared Siegel, an independent journalist. You can find his testimony to Congress, which is over 40 pages. He's talking about the Hamilton 68 dashboard. This is the CIA. This is John Brennan, the brainchild of this. Furthermore, Patrick Byrne, who's the former CEO of Overstock.com and co-founder, who is a former Stanford student and Cambridge University student. He was a recruit by the CIA. He was a CIA asset for many years. He states it back in 2006. He has said recently to Alex Jones and Lindell TV that John Brennan built a data center, Charles, in Belgrade that worked with Dominion servers to rig U.S. votes in the 2020 election, and again, successfully keeping Donald Trump out of office. This is John Brennan, which, again, and I've got a hard 3 minutes, Charles, but I'd love to join you again. This is exactly, in my opinion, why Trump went after Maduro, because it was smart-manic, the election rigging system that was created by the Venezuelans to keep or put Hugo Chavez in power. That kept unemployed Maduro in power, and now that he's locked up in his cell in Brooklyn, he's a great brain to pick in regards to election fraud in this country. And hopefully Tina Peters, who's likely going to be paroled here in the next couple of weeks, can speak a little bit more to that. Dominion servers were located in Colorado, and she's the woman that's, I think, now 80, that's in prison for the past few years because she duplicated the fraud that she was experiencing in her county. And Wilson. That's one thing. It doesn't get audited. There are plenty of people over the decades that have spoken about that. That's one thing. But if crimes are committed on the American taxpayer and the American people, those people need to be held accountable. And that's why I'm going after John Brennan, because he has allegedly committed very serious crimes. He's left a paper trail. That's my research and a former FBI agent's research, and he needs to be investigated immediately and held accountable, like I said, for those crimes. And I'm as a non-legal scholar, I'm calling it treason, because I see that he is completely aided and abetted an enemy during a time of war, and that was the global war on terror, which Biden, of course, did away with, but Bush started. So that's a nutshell, Charles, of what your viewers and listeners will get when they open the pages of high stakes treason. This is very serious stuff.
Imagine my surprise when I found out that John Brennan, James Clapper, Comey, all still held on to their security clearance. When I used to work for ABC Radio in San Francisco, and they were purchased by Disney and fired everybody, I didn't get to keep my key card that gave me access to the building. But yet these clowns and these higher ups and running these wicked, wicked deep state holes maintain their security clearance. Even during President Trump's first time, Trump 45, they still had their high security clearance. That was never revoked. That was bizarre to me. Why are they still and of course, CNN, is featuring them all. Every chance they get, they had them on every day. Clapper and Brennan and Comey, and just spilling secrets like crazy. It was treasonous. Is what was going on. Why are these pigs still walking? Why are they still not in an orange jumpsuit somewhere? Why are they not at Gitmo? What the hell's going on? How do you continue like that and not have any kind of repercussions, Ian?
Well, I'm trying to change that, at least with the former director of the CIA, who, by the way, Patrick Byrne said still owns. That means control, but he said it owns the top two layers of the CIA, and that John Ratcliffe is a performing fleet. That's a direct quote from Patrick Byrne, who just today, an earlier interview that I had with Scott McKay, has said that he has spent $80 million of his own dollars to try to prove and show the election rigging that's going on in this country. That's Patrick Byrne, a former billionaire. I don't know if he still is or not, but he's a brilliant genius. That again, went to Stanford and Cambridge University in the UK. He created Overstock.com, and he has spent, according to Scott McKay, $80 million trying to help Americans realize the fraud that's going on in their election system. And I've got 1 minute, Charles, but I'd love to rejoin you. The one book that I want to tip your listeners and viewers off to is a book called Vote Scam. It was written by two brothers, the Collier brothers. If you're lucky, you can find some interviews of James Collier, Collier, out of Miami, talking about the election rigging. They wrote that back in the 90s, Charles. That book, that first edition, was written back in the 90s. This is before the hanging chads of Gore Bush. Okay, so this deep state that has infiltrated this great republic and is tearing it down, this has been at play for many decades. This is nothing new, but we're seeing it. We're seeing some of the most radical decisions being made, certainly during this effort to keep Donald Trump at bay and keep him from doing things that make the country great. And even Donald Trump, of course, is making decisions that boggle my mind that are not American first. I'm an American person. I think the country's great. We keep our manufacturing in the country, for one, keep our farmers working. And we're not doing those things under Trump. So this is because this global banking machine has control of his administration on many elements. Charles, I've got to wrap up. I got to go. But I look forward to rejoining your show.
It all leads back to Obama. I'm quite convinced of that. But who's calling shots for him? He's not nearly as smart as he likes us to think. Who's calling the shots for him? This is just so wicked. I can't wait to see your book. I haven't read it yet, and it's called High Stakes Treason. Ian Trottier, Trottier. I found your YouTube channel, but where do we get your book? How do we find that? I wish I had more time with you, by the way. I know you got to go. We got to do this again. Would you be on again?
Yeah, absolutely.
Good.
I'll join you anytime, Charles.
How do you find your book? How do we get your book?
Get it on Amazon. High Stakes Treason on Amazon. It's I think it's the top. It was like 40,000 yesterday. It's been moving up, fluctuating around 50,000. Top 50,000 book, and it was a little bit higher than Miranda Devine's book recently. So Amazon, if you go to highstakestreason.com, you type in HTTPS. For some reason, you got to put the S in there on that hypertext protocol. That'll bring up a bunch of blurbs and information on the book. If you want a copy direct from me, which benefits me the most, Venmo me $35. I'll send you an autographed copy. Give me your address and payment. I'll get one out as soon as possible.
Yeah, I always recommend that. Always. That's very smart that you're doing that. I'm glad. Let's cut Jeff Bezos right out of the picture if we can. Yeah, go directly to the source. And it's highstakestreason.com. You said?
Yeah.
Okay, but you had to put in the HTTPS / all that. You can't do the www thing. Is that right?
You gotta put the S after HTTP. You gotta put in an S. I'm trying that fixed. It's got something to do with your certificate from GoDaddy, where I buy it. But unfortunately, you gotta put in HTTPS. But if you type High Stakes Treason to Google or Yahoo, you'll see it in the results. It's basically the landing page for the book.
Okay, brother. We'll do it again. Fantastic. I'm so glad I had you on. Thank you to Johanna out there in New York for introducing us and letting me know about you. Ian Trottier, and wish you all the best, my friend. Talk to you soon. That was fantastic. I really, really enjoyed that. And you want to get in touch with me and you want to help me out? You want to get yourself one of these mugs? I know you want one of these coffee mugs. Let's talk about politics and religion. Get one for yourself at CharLeeSimons.com, CharLeeSimons.com, CharLeeSimons.com. You can not only get a mug, but I got hats and shirts and all kinds of stuff. Most important thing, I can remind you of those to please do this. Please. What have I got written there? Oh, I did some writing on there. So anyway, this is like how funny. I wrote that down. I forgot I had that on there. Anyway, election June 2nd, Tuesday, June 2nd, 2026. Vote in the primary. Elections are won and lost in the primary in California. We need you now more than ever. Please make that happen. Please do that. May God bless you and keep you. May God bless America. But most importantly, America, bless God.